The Boy with the Broken Clock. The daytime burst was a Tuesday. Milo Finch had his father's pocket watch open on the kitchen table, screws lined like breadcrumbs, the brass case cupping moonlight. He wanted to see how the heartbeat worked. He lifted the bridge, nudged the mainspring, a bright snap. Steel leapt like a coiled snake. The balance wheel skittered. A jewel pinged into the shadows. The ticking stopped. Down the cliff path, the lighthouse turned its slow glass, and the sea went on, breathing. Inside the cottage there was only silence, and Milo's hands shaking. His father, Thomas Finch, the keeper of St. Hallow Light, came in smelling of salt and lamp oil. He saw the watch, his wedding gift, sprawled like a bird with its chest open. "Milo," he said, not loud, worse than loud. "I'll fix it," Milo whispered, throat tight. "You will not touch it again," Thomas said, gathering the pieces with that careful anger only gentle men can muster. He tucked the dead timepiece into a tin. Some things are not for taking apart. He left for the night shift. Milo stayed with the echo of the word not, but the watch had already colonized him. When he closed his eyes, he saw a city of ticks and tocks, a street of gears turning like little suns, a gate releasing, holding, releasing, an escapement, so the world didn't fall all at once. He snuck to the junk stall by the harbor and bought 2 broken alarm clocks and a tin of rouge. He found a thin book in the vicarage library on timekeeping. He filled a school notebook with diagrams. He made a rule on the first page: break bravely, write why. Nights, while Thomas tended the giant clockwork that spun the lighthouse lens, Milo met the smaller gods of time. He learned the truth that every craft keeps like a secret you don't say aloud. Progress is the trail your failures make when they're walking in the same direction. He broke a dozen springs. He bent a balance staff, and then with a matchstick and spit burnished it true. He learned to polish pivots until they shone like wet blackberries. He built a wooden escapement with nails and a string pendulum and set it by the window. It ticked. It made the kitchen sound like it had a heartbeat again. Old Mrs. Penhaligon, the watchmaker in town, watched him press his nose to her shop glass for 3 days, then opened the door with a bell's clatter. "You're the lad who murdered his father's watch," she said without malice. "I'm trying to resurrect," Milo said. She liked the answer. She gave him a cracked loop and a stool. "First lesson," she said, handing him a basket of cases, "is patience small enough to fit through the eye of a screw." There was a montage that summer, the kind you can feel even when no one is filming. Dust motes like stars in a slant of light. Milo's left eye squinted from the loop, Mrs. Penhaligon's gnarled hands guiding his, then letting go. The language of parts taught itself to him. Pallet fork, escape wheel, hairspring, jewel. He learned to breathe shallow so his breath wouldn't send screws into exile. He learned that oil is consumed by time, and so are people, unless you learn how to wind. The tin with his father's watch stayed on the mantel, banished hope. Storm season came early. Gales ran in from the Atlantic like dogs off a leash. On a hard blue night, the lighthouse turned slow and sure, a patient star. Thomas had an inspection the following week, new harbour master, new rules, and he liked the ritual of setting his pocket watch by the tower clock, matching small time to great time. He would fail that ritual now, and Milo felt the failure as if he had swallowed it. The storm rose mean. Rain flayed the cliff. The lighthouse lens threw its white blade. The tower machinery, oiled and faithful, ticked the weight-driven drum that made the lens rotate. Then a sound came up the cliff that every keeper knows as nightmare, grinding, a cough in the rhythm. The light hesitated, stuttered, and for 3 long heartbeats did not turn at all. Thomas would be halfway up the spiral steps, lantern up, cursing softly at rust and fate. Ships were out. Milo could hear their fog bell voices. Without rotation, the beam would fix and fail its calling. Milo ran. Up the cliff path, head down, rain like nails. In the service room, the great clockwork stood, a forest of brass pillars, drums, governor fan, the massive fall of weights in the center shaft. The air smelled of ozone and oil. Thomas looked up, surprised and stern. "Go home. But ruin has its own permission." Milo slid past, dropped to his knees, listened. He could hear it, the escapement catching. The pallet stones had drifted, The beat had gone out of true. Maybe a warmth-cold cycle had moved a screw. Maybe the last overhaul had left a weakness. It didn't matter why. It mattered now. "Stop the train," Milo said. Thomas blinked, then pulled the brake lever. The weights steadied. The lens shuddered to stillness, light banding the rain like a curtain. Milo lifted the cover, loop to eye. The lighthouse clock was a giant cousin of the pocket watch, the same family only with bones big as a boy's fingers. He saw the problem as if his summer of ruin had been rehearsal for this second. The pallet fork had walked itself a whisper out. He loosened a lock nut, nudged, tightened. He checked the lock and drop, tiny clearances that made the life of motion. He steadied his breathing. "Release," he said. Thomas eased the brake. The train moved. The fan began to spin. The escape wheel kissed each pallet stone in turn. Hold, release, hold. And the lens began its slow, ordained rotation. The beam swept the sea, found a ship, found the cliff, found Milo's face wet with rain, and a grin he could not hide. Thomas didn't speak. He put his hand on his son's shoulder, the kind of grip that says everything. The storm passed. The inspection came and went without comment because in the best scenes, success looks boring. The light turned, the book was signed. That evening, Thomas set the tower clock and, out of habit, reached for the watch that wasn't there, then let his hand fall. "Bring the tin," he said. They poured the dead watch out on the table. Mrs. Penhaligon had taught Milo more than technique. She had taught the order courage takes. He laid out the parts, breathed, chose where to begin. The balance staff was wounded. He shaped a new one from a sewing needle, stoning it to a cone so fine it could stand in a hummingbird's sigh. He trued the hairspring, unbending the cruelest kink with 2 needles and a prayer. He polished jewels until they winked. He assembled, oiled, closed, he wound. The watch hesitated, 1, 2, and then took the beat, steady as a heart learning a name. Tick, tick, tick. The sound filled the small cottage like forgiveness. Thomas turned away, blinked hard, and then laughed. That strange laugh people make after surviving their own anger. "Some things," he said, "are for taking apart, it seems." Milo wore the loop more often. He apprenticed with Mrs. Penhaligon, then with a machinist in the city, then with an engineer who built regulators for turbines. Years later, when he designed a tiny sensor that kept wind farms in tune with the wind, he still kept a notebook on his desk with the first rule in a boy's hand: brake bravely. Write why. Because the fastest way the brain learns is by meeting its own edges and pushing. Error turned into map, failure into myelin, curiosity into craft. Because time, once broken and rebuilt, belongs to you in a different way. Because a Tuesday can burst, and if you let it, make room for a better beat. Remember, every story is only a beginning. Today's seeds of mindset will bloom into tomorrow's strength. Join us, subscribe, and let Mindset Stories rewire your mind one story